welcome to Project Beast. This is Joven. I hope you're all having a great day. Today I just wanted to share with you how I converted this, oh that's heavy, 14 by 10 floor tom into a snare, also known as a Snom. You can see the snare wires under. It's just a basic good quality snare wires. And as you can see, I have a, oh my gosh, this is so heavy. I got a Aquarian Performance 2. It's an old head that I own, so I put it on there. And I'm also using a snare weight. You can see that. Snare weight, it's a leather damping system, magnetic, if you don't know it. So it clips on like that if you don't need, or if you want minimal damping, you can clip it like that. It's very convenient, very handy. I like it way better than big fat snare drum. I'm just not a fan of those slap plasticky sound that you get. But there you go. I have a DW mag throw for convenience. More on that later. Just a side note, I love using coated heads because you get that a bit of a damping built in, and coated heads also is a great reflector for your lighting setup. Okay, a bit of a backstory. I was looking into expanding my acoustic recording setup for a couple projects I wanted to record, because I wasn't 100% happy with the Tama Club Jam, with the way it sounds acoustically. So I settled on getting a 14-inch and a 16 floor toms for my recording setup. As for the old floor tom, which you can see right here, it's gonna be a full-time electric drums. The first one I added was the 16-inch floor tom, which I used in the Tears for Fears challenge video. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's this one right here. It's covered in mute pads at the moment. Ow. And for the 14-inch floor tom, I wanted the versatility of the Snom. I initially wanted to get the 14 by 10 Snom by Tama, which is called the Duo SLP, but it's currently out of stock in Singapore, and you have to wait until June to get one. That's a bit of a wait for me, but I happened to stumble upon this gem, which was unbundled from the set it came with. For some reason, the both buyers of two different sets didn't want two floor toms. So I'm happy to take them home. Anyway, for this project, since I don't exactly know how to do it properly, I asked help from one of Singapore's finest custom drum builder, George of Pantheon Percussion. If you don't know, it's where my cymbals and the snare that I've been using for my recording setup come from. I went with the DW mag throw off. I think they call it mag throw. Yeah, mag throw off. If you can see here. Yes. It's magnetic. That's why it's called mag throw off. So, yeah. I imagine it would be helpful for fast switching between phrases or parts of a song if I need to. Okay, I'm on my way to drop off the tom at Pantheon Percussion. This is around my neighborhood. Okay, back at Pantheon Percussion Workshop. They are located in Music Elements in Oxley Bishub if you're in Singapore. So first step is removing the resonant head. Next step is just adding painter's tape to be used for markings. This is on the snare throw side. The other one is the butt plate side. Here we put it on a Lazy Susan, but with markings. We align the drums on the markings for 8 lug drums. Now we just make sure everything is centered and everything is straight and lined up according to the measurement. Double check everything before we mark the lugs. First mark here is the center between the lugs. We label the side of the snare throw, and then we mark the side of the butt plate. You have to plan this out before you start drilling. Also, you have to think about how you position your floor tom on the drums. That would determine where your snare side and butt plate goes. Throughout this whole process, George is guiding me. There I just added another tape for the snare throw. Here I'm just adding another marking for the vertical line. Make sure it's straight. This is for the snare throw side. So this step is just marking and measuring where the butt plate sits and where the snare throw sits on the shell. And if you are hearing marimba, it's because they are carrying Innovative Percussion mallets, and there's a marimba that you can try out. For this line, you can see the butt plate line. That's where it would sit. Next step is to mark the holes where we would drill. Okay, so this step, we just punch a hole using the puncher tool to prepare it for the pilot holes. Okay, we take the drum outside so we don't dust up the entire workshop. Here we are just drilling pilot hole first, so we don't damage the wood. For the butt plate, there's you kind of follow the direction of the butt plate where the screw goes in. So it's not straight. You angle it a bit and then you're aiming to go to the center. Now for this step, we are enlarging the holes. And then drill from the inside also to clean up all the burrs and marks of the drilling. Okay, next step is to sand off from the inside, but you have to follow the grain so you don't add or introduce any scratches from the inside. For this next step, I let George do his thing. He carves out a slope for the snare bed, so the snare sits properly on the snare side, on the batter side, so you have full contact all the time, and consistent contact. So he does the same thing for both sides, butt plate side and snare throw side. So initial sanding, and then gradually change to a finer sandpaper for the finishing. Then we can take off the tape at this point. Next up is dusting off the drums. Make sure everything is clean before we bring it back inside the workshop. Alright, so next step is assembly. We are putting on the DW mag throw. So just put the screws in by hand. Next step is to check for straightness. Make sure everything's straight before you tighten everything up. Okay, this is where I almost scratched the inside of my drum. So the proper way of tightening the screws here is to turn the wrench sideways. Make sure it doesn't touch the wood inside. Double check for straightness before you do the final tightening up. And for the butt plate side, it's the same thing. Tighten by hand first, check for straightness, and then lock it in place. For this next step, we are applying bearing edge conditioner on the resonant side. Just a very thin layer. It helps with the contact of the drum head and make sure everything is resonating. We changed out the rim to a snare side rim, and then we also changed the resonant head to a snare bottom resonant head, so a thinner one. This is Evan's resonant head on the bottom of the snare. Now here we are just tuning, just roughly, because I later tuned it again when I got home. Alright, we are almost done. Now it's just the installing of the snare wire. So for the snare wire, you just pull it very close to the butt end first. So for the snare side, you hold this at this angle that you can see here. Then you pull the string or the wire, the snare wire. You pull it, and then you lock it in place. Okay, for the last step, you just tidy up everything. Should be good to go. I haven't changed out the batter side of the head here. I'm just still using the stock floor tom head. It sounds very big and sounds super loud. This is the demo of the drum in the Pantheon workshop. Experimenting with the big fat snare drum heads. Then if you get tom. And this is a demo of the Snom with a 2-mic setup with basic mix. Alright, there you have it. It's a nice little project. I'm not gonna lie, this Snom is fun. So far, I'm super impressed with how it sounds. Both the 14-inch and the 16-inch is a PDP concept maple drum, and I'm loving how the snare and the tom sounds. They both have growl and depth, which is what I was lacking in the Club Jam floor toms. It was too shallow, which is a win for me. Alright, let me know your thoughts on my current setup, or if you have a Snom, shout out in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't yet, ring the bell so you get notified when I post new videos, and see you in the next project.